What's going on, everybody? Puke Combs here, filling in for Michael Massie. He couldn't do the song tonight, so I had to step up and do it once again. Now remember, it's me, Puke Combs, doing the song. So if you have any complaints, get mad, offended about anything, please direct those complaints to me, Puke Combs, and not the gentleman, Michael Massie. I keep chasing that old point system. That new point system isn't working. Riding mid-pack, then winning 4 times doesn't make a giant deserving. I want nothing but all the best to win titles and wear this mess. I keep chasing that old point system. That new point system isn't working. Ain't no love of this playoff format. What Team Mitski is the team who reigns. You'll know when the fans have had it, when all the spots are here to complain.
Puke Combs took a shot before he started that song.
Look, it was a regular size red Solo cup. His hands are so big.
Well, you know what they say about big hands.
Look, Puke. If you're gonna differentiate yourself from Michael Massie, you look so similar to him. You gotta wear a hat, or where you even have the same shirt.
He stole my attire.
The budget to make sure that those two characters are different is very low.
We're like a 10-gallon hat or something.
We're gonna have an award show next week, and Toby, and you'll see how much we put into the quote-unquote awards.
Well, I have to tune in for that.
Well, all I have to say is identity theft is not a joke, Puke. Millions of families suffer every year.
Yeah, get LifeLock.
I should just do like the Clark Kent Superman, where I just take the glasses off.
There you go. That would at least be an effort. That would be an attempt.
Well, if you don't know, this is the Happy Hour podcast, and joining me is Puke Combs, a.k.a. Michael Massie. If you couldn't figure that out, spoiler alert, glass break. Dalton Hopkins joins us as well, and joining us, he finally, he allegedly said he had plane flight issues last week. The editor-in-chief and owner, head honcho, whatever you want to call it, boss man, like Toby Christie from TobyChristie.com, which is not hard to remember, and RacingAmerica.com, which is a part of Sports Illustrated. So, Toby, welcome on in to Happy Hour. You're pretty much used to trash talking us during race weekend, so I feel like you're going to fit right in.
Yeah, it's gonna go well. This is gonna be a good one. I've been bitter this year. I've talked more crap because Dalton hasn't been at the track, and I feel like when Dalton's at the track, we have a good vibe. When it's you and Puke over here, Massie, it's not quite the same.
Well, something nuts happens when me and Massie are at the track. That is what has happened.
Although I will say, if Massie's not there, I'm sad because I don't know when it's time to go get the meals. Like literally, he is the true indicator of when it's food time. Because as soon as they announce there's anything, or as soon as there is a chafing dish with like a warm heat supply underneath it, Massie is up and he's there, and I know it's time. But
hey, I learned the hard way that if you don't get food when they tell you to get food, you won't eat.
A lot of times they don't tell you either. It's just kind of it's there, and if you don't catch it, you don't catch it.
I won't know that they're serving food until like somebody comes back with a plate of food, and I've noticed that every time Massie's like the first one, he's got it down. Like he's got it. He's strategic. He's tactical about it. He knows exactly when they're going to serve it. And he's like, I'm going to plan this time to go in there and get what I need.
Yeah, on race weekends, I draft Massie all the time.
we still make fun of Brian Nolan because he got mad at me at Vegas earlier this year when I didn't force the people serving food to keep it out there for 3 hours longer so he could get his lunch. So we still
how could
make
you?
fun of that.
You horrible person. Like Brian Nolan would have done the same thing.
Right. I don't know. He would not have looked out for you at all.
No.
I could tell.
No.
See, Toby making fun of Brian, he fits right in.
Hey, it is what it is.
I will say this.
Yeah.
Taylor Kitchen announced she's leaving TobyChristie.com. Was it today? Was it because did you scare her off after she was on the show? Was that like a?
I think me announcing I was going to be on the show caused her to do it. She's like, damn, if he's that desperate, I gotta go.
He's like,
I'm
you're going there?
That might be it. All right.
He's like, I went on there, but I'm still trying to build myself up. You went, I'm out.
What a fall from grace from TobyChristie.com. I gotta abandon ship while I still can.
Yeah, totally.
Well, as always, sit back, relax, crack open that cold one, unless you are, driving or of age, because here at frontstretch.com we ask you to drink responsibly. And let's dive right on in. So a lot of takeaways, we'll just say that, came from the championship race at Phoenix, and we're gonna go a lot of big picture this weekend. I mean this episode. We're not here all weekend. I'm on fire to start this episode, but one big thing obviously was the format with Joey Logano winning. We'll get to his legacy in a moment, but Toby, I know you wanted to touch on the format itself. So you're, as our guest, you're first up, my friend.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that kudos to NASCAR. This is exactly what they had envisioned when they made this format. It came to fruition this weekend. They got a guy that had 7 top 5 finishes that's now your champion. That's what it's all about. That's what we set out for. We go, you know what? There's a guy who's got 6 wins, but that's great and all. But let's get a guy with 7 top 5s. That's our champion. That's what we need. And that's what we got. 17.1 average finish, the worst average finish in the history of any NASCAR Cup Series champion ever. Like, we're talking ever, guys. This thing's been around for what, 76 years now, right? We finally did it. We have done it. We found a format that sucks so bad that we can have the crappiest stat champion of all time. And so this is, I mean, it's embarrassing. And no takeaway from Logano, by the way. Like, he did what he was supposed to do. And in the situation, he actually saved NASCAR quite a bit by winning the race. Because had he not won the race, we wouldn't even be talking about, we might make some tweaks. The tweaks would have already been done had he not won this race and won the championship. But he won the race to at least kind of take some of the heat off NASCAR. But the fact that this format exists where this guy, with the year he had where he barely made the playoffs by a 5 overtime cluster crap that was Nashville, and he was like 15th when the race was supposed to end, that's just unforgivable.
So Auto Racing Analysis said he's the 10th fastest, 22nd best restarter, 31st most efficient passer.
There you go.
You want some more? Here, I got 5 more. All right.
Oh, hit it, and then I'll hit the music.
Well,
average finish, 16th, top 10s, 13th, top 5s, 11th, laps led, 9th, stage wins, 8th. Hit that music, Trey.
Stat corner. Dalton stat corner.
A little underwhelming, but yeah.
That's fine. The budget's Dalton
stat corner.
Drop the bass.
Wow.
Yeah.
And, by traditional. Ooh, wow.
That was horrifying.
Okay, maybe
horrifying just now.
Maybe the budget is a little higher than I thought. So okay, that's good. But 15th in traditional points too. I mean, this is just. Man, I know you want a format where it's not over with a couple races to go, but we didn't really see that very much anyway in the old classic format to begin with, especially the level that we're at right now. And that wasn't even really what this was all about. It was just about a guy winning 1 race, 2 races that would win a championship. People don't like that. But I don't know. I think we've gone way too far. At this point, we're opening up the playoffs to way too many people. I think winning you're in has caused a very bad situation here at this point where a person can pretty much just screw off for an entire season as long as they somehow find a way to get a proper push at Daytona in the last lap. Then now all of a sudden they're in the playoffs, or if they're just sitting 15th with going in that first out of 5 overtimes, they can just top off the fuel tank and be good. So I don't know. I feel like this is it's pathetic that we're in this situation, and I hate that we're talking about this right now.
Yeah, I want to give some appreciation to the person that was like, hey, NASCAR crowned the guy was 12th in points or something that as the series champion, and they went through each year and said who would be the champion if they were like went by who was 12th in points. It was like Wendell Scott was a champion. JD Stacy was or not JD. Oh, what's his name? JD McDuffie was a champion.
Clint Boyer, 3-time champion.
Brock Beard would be like fist pumping right now if McDuffie got a championship.
Yeah.
Can we go back and retroactively change these things?
So yeah, good work by. I wish I could remember who tweeted that, but kudos to you. But yeah, it's just a bad look. To just, and like you said, Joey Logano is a really good driver. Team Penske didn't have it for a lot of this year, and it's not his fault that Penske lacked speed for a greater portion of the season. But if there's one guy that, if we had the Squid Game situation where you're fighting for your life and only the winner survives, Joey Logano is the guy that I would bet on to win, because he always finds a way, and the even year streak continues. But it's just, you look at that list now of and we'll get into that more of his legacy, but it just feels really weak for him to be a 3-time champion with the ways that he's won these 3 championships. And the format's gotta change. I appreciate that he exposed every loophole that you could find in just one playoff or one season, and it's crazy. The only thing that could have made it even better is, like you said, he won the race. If he finished 13th and still won the championship,
the other 3 guys wreck on the first lap.
So that would have made it much better. But yes, if they tweak it, if they just want to do minor tweaks, the thing I would suggest is to keep it a 10-race playoff. If you want to do the elimination, just do 3-race, flip it, 3-race series for the last 3 rounds, but the first round is just 1 race. Have the top 10 in points get an automatic bye, and then it's just 6 guys fighting for 2 spots in that first race. So then,
and if you win, automatic advancement. How about that?
Yeah. So you start with 16 still, because I know, we gotta have 16 people in because sponsors. So if we that way you can still start with 16 and just cut 4 of them off right after that first week. That would be my suggestion. You still get a 3-race series at the end. I think that would be a minor tweak that could go a long ways towards fixing this thing.
So I think Eric Estep proposed a similar idea to that, Massie, on his program. I think this is twofold. I think with this new car, you can't have a win it in format because the parity is so tight now that consistency is so much more important, or should be highlighted more. The reason, and NFL is all about parity, and if you really can't compare NASCAR to a stick and ball sport, because in the final game of the season, not the worst team in the NFL is playing in that game. It was, obviously Zane Smith is not the Carolina Panthers, but he's more like the up and coming, I don't know, Chicago Bears, maybe a really talented quarterback with a bad team. Effects like that Zane Smith caution almost basically dictated the championship. And that doesn't happen in stick and ball sports. So I try to wrap my head around this. I think the winning in format does not fit with the parity, because the winning is it's harder, but more people do it. So it's an increased chance of volatility in terms of who will advance. If you think about it, in the round of 8, the 3 guys below the cut line coming in won a race and advanced to the final round. It's because 1 through 20 now in the Cup Series can win every week, and we never had that in the pre-next gen car, where you had less you had a guy go win 10 races, and then that distinguished itself. Logano won 4 races, but it was 3 of the last 10, and 2 of his wins this season were and this is a lot of credit to Paul Wolf and him, but very, 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 very lucky. To be fair, everything had to be perfect here for him to win this championship this year. And we'll get to his legacy in a second. So I think it's just not rewarding consistency enough, because now you have a car that is so what is it? 15 different winners, 16 different winners this year. We had we're averaging between 14 to 20 different winners each year in this next gen car. So that's just going to mean the volatility of the playoffs means guys who have great seasons are going to get out sooner because of the win and in format. I think they should go back to the OG chase at this point with how similar these cars are. Maybe tweak the points a little bit with wins mean double points or something like that. There's ways to tweak this where you still value winning. I just think winning is the be all and be all in the sport. But since it's now so, I don't want to say so easy, but so spread out, that it's going to cause this kind of outcome, because we're now 3 years in a row where the best car doesn't win the championship. And I really think, do we pick Byron as driver of the year last year? We did, right?
Yeah.
So he was in the final. He was in the Final Four last year. Okay, but this year, next week we'll have our driver of the year. I don't think he was in the Final Four, and it seems to me like this car is going to cause this kind of outcome because the winning is so common, and the way to fix that is just bringing back the chase, which Jeff Cluck did a poll, and that was the most answer at 45.4%, full season race 38.6%, which I would be okay with, and then 16% was the current format. I would say that here. So Javier wants to go back to the OG points. Dalton, what do you think about this? I think the next gen car creates parity, and it makes this win and in format kind of more difficult to navigate.
What I think is that I think all of y'all are about to get an angry phone call from Mike Ford. So
he doesn't have my phone number, so I'm good.
He's got mine. I'll gladly answer the call. It's fine.
I don't think he's gonna get. I don't think he's gonna get one from. I don't think he's got mine. I don't know. Maybe he does. I don't know.
Do you think he's tuned into this?
Or
is it a bot?
He can join us. Mike, if you're listening, you can join us.
Come on the show. Come on down. He won't though.
I love Mike.
Nice.
Though. He's a good guy.
Yeah, no, he definitely is. He definitely is. So, but all that said, so I was mentioning before we started this broadcast that Logano made the quote of, "Oh, well, now why is it that now all of a sudden everyone's complaining about the playoffs?" And it's like, well, Joey, people have been complaining about the playoffs since 2014, ever since this playoff format that we've got now. This is not a new thing. I think now it's just because Joey made that. Joey is the most, how do I put this? The lowest statistically successful driver to win the championship. Statistically. I mean, that's not my opinion. That's just fact. And
obviously, he wasn't paying attention to when Matt Crafton and Austin Dillon won the championship under these kinds of formats with no wins.
Oh, good Lord.
People were pissed. So
yeah.
Kyle Busch won it with missing 11 races. People were outraged.
Yeah.
That was pretty it's pretty upsetting too. I mean, personally, I like the playoffs. I really genuinely do. I think 36 races is a lot, right? I personally believe that 36 races is just, it's one of the most that motorsports have in the motorsports world that a single series has. So to say that we're going to do start to finish 36 races, we've seen the outcome of that time and time again. It gets a little stale. Look at Formula One. They only have 24 races now. I can't remember how much it is, but the championship's locked up. It was 22. Championships locked up freaking 5 races before the end. I don't want to watch anymore after that. I don't care. I don't care about the championship.
Yeah, you say that, but we didn't have a cup season in that format where it was locked up 5 races early. We have rarely saw it locked up a race early. Honestly, it only happened 5 times, Massie?
It's greater parity now, so I don't think it would be a blowout with.
Wasn't the difference between like Bell?
It was I think it was 5 points.
Yeah, it was 5 points in the end. So
5 points.
Looking at this now, starting in 2014, Kevin Harvick won the title according to the old point system. Shout out to Wikipedia. Jeff Gordon would have won his 7th, so this is like predating this, but Jeff Gordon would have won it. Kyle Busch in 2015, which obviously he was great when he was healthy. Then Kevin Harvick would have won the title. Kevin Harvick actually would have gone back-to-back in 15, 16. Jimmy wins in 16. Truex, actually, the first time in this new format that you had the guy who won the title, like, would have also won it in this format, if that makes sense. So Logano's first title, Kyle Busch was the best points driver that year, if you want to call it that. 2019 was Kyle Busch in both. 2020, obviously, was Harvick. Elliott wins the title. 21 was Larson both, and then Elliott in 22, Logano wins the title as mentioned, and then William Byron last year, Larson wins the title this year with Logano. So we've seen it twice, 3 times since 2014 that the guy who was just the old school best driver of the year to win the title, and that's 2 of 8. That's like you don't see that's hard to see in other sports. Like typically 50% of the time, the 1 seed is winning the title.
Yeah. Well, then also NASCAR, we mentioned it earlier, where everyone's on the playing field each week. You open yourself up to now where these guys are battling for a championship, have teammates, they start altering things. We've seen the manipulation stuff. It's a direct result of a playoff format because things have been reset. So things are close enough to the point where you can manufacture stuff on the track to kind of alter the way things are outcoming through each one of these rounds. And everything that we keep seeing that we don't like today is a direct result of everything that NASCAR has put in place that wasn't in place before all this stuff started. And it's just been a snowball effect. And it's at the point now where we're so far removed from what this was that we can't even see what it once was anymore. And it's really upsetting because I think there was a certain charm to the full season long format, in my opinion, because I don't know if you guys were there. I think Massie probably was watching back then.
He's an old man, so yes.
Okay, so Massie was probably there with me. We're probably the guys shaking our fists at the clouds right now, but it was great because every race mattered. Okay, you couldn't throw away a race. You couldn't just go, you know what? I'm not going to worry about this one because it doesn't really matter. We're going to reset things in 10 races anyway. Every race mattered. If you made a mistake at Daytona, it equaled as much as a mistake at Rockingham. It equaled as much as a mistake at Atlanta. And these mistakes compounded throughout the entire season. And if you wanted to make something up, you had to be perfect the rest of the way to get back through there. And that was part of the charm of it. You had to see if a guy could make that recovery and come back, or if somebody else would shoot themselves in the foot on the way through thinking they had the thing won. And we just don't have that anymore. And sure, some of the drama is great, but so much of it doesn't feel real. It just feels so contrived and fake. And we're at the point now where it's hard to actually enjoy it even when we get something crazy, because you look at it and you go, well, that shouldn't even have happened because this is a situation that was built for that situation to always happen every time.
Yeah, and Logano brought up a point, like the storylines we saw from this playoffs, like wouldn't have happened if we had a different format. I think like Ryan Blaney's awesome drive in Martinsville gets highlighted more if you're not doing the bull crap we saw at the end because of this format. Because he's still like, and then Reddick's move, like Reddick's still going to do that move because he still wants to win the race, even if it was a regular race. Like,
yeah.
So, and
the Hail Melon never would have happened without the playoffs.
Which, probably in the long term of things was a good thing because that was very unsafe.
Honestly, if we could go back to the first year of the playoffs, this format in 2014, things could have saved. Like, we wouldn't even be in this situation right now had Ryan Newman somehow found a way to be ahead of Kevin Harvick. Yes. Had that happened, this format would never have gotten to this point because what we saw happen this year would have happened that year and we'd be done.
Well, in the Truck Series, didn't Matt Crafton win the title without winning a race?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So we've seen it. Which
they're
not going to change because of the Truck Series.
In his press conference, I remember Matt Crafton was very defensive. He was getting mad at everybody who even remotely questioned whether that was an authentic. So Like if you just won the championship, like if it's a real authentic championship, you don't care what anybody says. Now we see champions that feel like they have to defend themselves, whether it's legit.
I'd throw everything Logano said out. Like I don't. He would if it was the other way around and someone said like we need a playoff format, he would have been like, "What? You're crazy!" Like,
well, I have a problem. I have a problem like criticizing the driver that wins the championship because that's not their fault. This is the format.
No.
They did what they needed to do, and kudos to them. Great. They gamed the system. They played the format. They did what they had to do. My problem is with the format itself. I think that we've seen it plenty of times where this has almost happened in the Cup Series, but didn't. We've seen it happen in Xfinity and Trucks, and now it's happened in Cup, and it's time to. It needs to change.
Well, despite everything that I said about the playoffs and how much I like them, I'm not. This is my gripe. I do have a gripe, and it's not with Joey Logano. It's with everyone saying, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with the playoffs. Joey Logano played it just right. Like he did exactly what he was supposed to. This is the way the playoffs are." And it's like, listen, I agree. This is what Joey Logano needed to do. This is what every driver needs to do, and they know that. And honestly, every driver will probably repeat the exact same thing I just said. They said they know what the format is. They know how they have to race. But the thing is that it really doesn't matter what NASCAR executives or drivers think, does it? What matters is what the fans think. Do the fans see this championship as legitimate? And right now, that is a resounding no. And I'll tell you what was so surprising that I saw was Jeff Gluck's poll that got mentioned earlier. And Trey, you mentioned it, which was the original chase format with the 10 drivers, 10 races, just go at it. I could not agree more. Like if it is going to get tweaked or get a huge overhaul in the future, like Adam Stern mentioned, I think it was about an hour ago now, like the NASCAR's looking at changing the format up, which is great. We got to go back to that. I thought that made the most sense because look, it is 36 races, right? Things get spread out after a while. We get a little bit of fatigue, but that 10 race cutoff with the chase refreshes it a little bit, and it's like, okay, now those 10 drivers, those guys who got a bad start to the beginning of the season, now they get a fresh start. But it's not 16 drivers anymore. Now it's 10. So you have to be a little bit better. We're not going to get Harrison Burton making the top 10, right? We're not going to get arguably Austin Cindric, right? We're going to get the top 10 guys. And with the parity of the next gen car, that's going to be still a really tough group to join because the top 10 guys, there's probably about 15 guys that can win every week.
16 now with the winning in is hard. Like you're debating for 12 in points. So I'm okay with it keeping 16 like that. Like if you want to keep it 16, that's fine. And you want to keep didn't they have 1 year they did 2 wild cards for a win because Jamie McMurray wasn't going to make it because he won, but he got in because he won the Daytona 500 and the Indianapolis 500, which is two pretty good wins in 1 year.
That's amazing that he won an open wheel race and was able to get into that.
He's so good. He also won Monaco that year.
Yeah, he was on fire.
He did in the Coke 600. He did them all on the same day.
Josh Williams has been in victory lane of the Monaco Grand Prix right here on this podcast. Just saying. That is actual.
Trey, you brought up something good a second ago about the races themselves actually would have had drama. And that's the thing I remember about pre-playoffs is that every race felt like an event and it was all about the storyline of that race itself. Instead, it's just the whole broadcast now or playoffs. And like the Harrison Burton win. That's such a good story. And, guy losing his job, Wood Brothers 100th win. Instead, all the talk, everyone's just criticizing the fact that the guy 32nd in points or whatever just made the playoffs, and it kind of really took away from it. Briscoe, that's the Southern 500. That's one of the biggest wins on the schedule. But instead, it's he just stole a playoff spot. I don't know. I feel like with the winning in, I would like to see winning in kind of go away. Just make it more about these races being actually about the race themselves.
Yeah. So I'm a realist, and that's why in Gluck's poll I picked the 16, the chase. The old school chase format, the 10 races, because NBC has to sell something. And I think they sell the idea of a playoffs, and I'm okay with the idea of a playoffs, but it has to be in every other sport, the playoffs are the exact same as like the game itself is the exact same. So like theoretically speaking, the regular season's all about consistency. So your playoff should be all about consistency. And when you have series like in baseball, you have to be good for like 2 months to win a World Series. You can't be good for a week. And in NASCAR, you have to be good for a week. Yeah. And I think you take the 16 best. If you still want this idea that wins matter, just make like, what is it, 40 points for a win, right? Mm-hmm. Make it 80 points.
Yeah.
Because
that way, like Harrison Burton doesn't automatically get the spot, but he gets
make it because like IndyCar did double points for the Indianapolis 500, and I actually like that idea because it's the biggest race in the world. It should mean more than every other race you race in NASCAR in the IndyCar. I'm getting my series mixed up.
we got
again.
Well, and that's the frustrating thing too. You got the biggest race of the year for NASCAR, Daytona 500, first race of the year, means very little now because all it means is cool. You're in the playoffs, sure, that's great, but it doesn't help really decide who your champion is. It feels like all of those races in the first 26. Well, yes, they are important because you have to win one of those usually to get into the playoff side of things. Once you're in the playoffs, sure, maybe give you 5 playoff points or something. But what happens to you once you get to the playoffs, as we saw with Kyle Larson this year, as we saw with all these other guys that had dominated throughout the season? It all matters about what you do in those 10 races. So it negates everything you did in those first 26. Sure, those 26 help you get an advantage going into that 10, but it doesn't assure anything past that. And it just really kind of negates the importance of those races, in my opinion. So it's really frustrating.
And also, if we get rid of the win and in, the Austin Dillon incident at Richmond doesn't happen.
Yeah.
He's incentivized to finish second and not risk it. Like he's incentivized because points meant.
Which you could argue is great, and you could also argue is bad because then guys don't care enough to win, but people always want to win anyway. So
I mean, Justin Allgaier literally gave up the win.
We really need to move on. Here. We need to move on from this topic, but my final thought, and I know I'm sorry, but I did see a post, I think it was earlier today, where somebody posted who the champions would be if NASCAR was under the Formula One points format, which they only award points for the top 10 drivers. And it was very similar to what the Winston Cup points format would offer, or a season-long format would offer. Christopher Bell still would have won the championship this year. And I kind of thought something interesting. It was like, wow, if we had that points format, people would be fighting hard to get in the top 10, like not just for a win, but for a top 10. Like that's a little bit more feasible. That's something that people would, maybe go out on a limb on strategy over, more than just like, well, if I'm going to stay on fuel, it's a very small chance we're going to win, right? Or if I'm going to stay on old tires, we're probably not going to win. But if I stay on old tires and get a top 10 to get points, I could do that. That's possible, right? So, final thought there.
It would be possible for us to tie Ty Dillon in points next year as well. I'm sorry, too soon. Sorry, Ty.
Good job. No, he might luck into a top 10 at a super speedway. So, all right, let's move on. Let's talk about Joey Logano. And I sort of touched on this during the post-race conversation with Kyle Benjamin that we had, that Brian Nolan and Steven Stump also joined live from Phoenix on Sunday night, live right here on the YouTube channel. So if you watched that and then came on for this, thank you. But Massie, Puke Combs, Joey Logano's legacy.
Yeah. So 3-time champion now, all in this format. He is one of 10 drivers in NASCAR's 76-year history to win 3 or more championships. And you just look at the names that he's tied for championships: Lee Petty, Darrell Waltrip, Cale Yarborough, Tony Stewart. I mean, that's an elite class. I think I'm forgetting one, but elite class of.
I have it pulled up, by the way.
Do you want to know something that none of those guys did in a championship, in any of their 3 championships?
Had an average finish as bad as him?
Yeah, they never had an average finish of 17.1, and they for sure had more than 7 top 5s. I can tell you that.
Lee Petty, David Pearson, Cale Yarborough, Darrell Waltrip, Tony Stewart, and Joey Logano are the 3-time champs. Jeff at 4, and then obviously Petty, Earnhardt, and Jimmy Johnson are the
only one I left off was Pearson. But yeah, all those guys when they won their championships, they had just dominant seasons. Like, just look at what Darrell Waldrop did in like 81, 82, where I think he won 12 races in each of those seasons. Like, Pearson, so dominant. I mean, Tony Stewart wasn't as dominant, but he's dominant for like the era he was in. And it's just like Logano is great. I really do think he's like an all-time great talent. But to throw his name in there with those guys, what do you think? Does it feel earned? That's where I don't know. But also, like, he's 34 years old. He could totally become another 7-time champion. And if we keep with this format and he does that, how do we feel about that? Like, what do you guys think about this deal?
I mean, I think when you look at what he's achieved, he hasn't lucked his way totally into it all. Okay, he's got 36 wins, which is nothing to turn your head at either. In addition to the 3 championships, he's got a lot of runway left ahead of him. At what, 34? Still, he's 34, pretty sure. So a lot of years left ahead of him still. So realistically, yeah, he could definitely get there, especially if he keeps doing this win a championship, skip a year, win a championship, skip a year situation. He can get there pretty quick. But it's one of those things where I don't know where to rank him all time still. It's still going though. So there's a long time for us to figure that out. But at the end of the day, I think he's one of the guys that doesn't want to see Phoenix go away from the final race of the year, especially if we're going to have a format like this, because his team obviously has figured this track out specifically. And that's another one of the things that when you look at this format, let's go back to that, is a silly thing that we have a one race format when a team has completely figured out one race. That's where we decided every year. But ultimately, I think you can't take anything away from him. He's done a great job. His career has been great to this point. And as far as everybody in his same area of where he is age wise, he's knocking the crap out of all of them. So I don't know.
I don't think, I'm sorry, Trey. I don't think we're going to see another, under this format at least, we're not going to see another 7-time champion ever again. Ever. It's too hard. It's too hard to win. I think so, because look at who the only person who has won multiple championships, or only 2 people who have won multiple championships under this format, are Kyle Busch and Joey Logano. Kyle Busch is Kyle Busch. He's KFB, right? Joey Logano is, I mean, in this, now we're into this conversation, right? Joey Logano is, I think, one of the best drivers in the modern era. But why has he won all these championships? Well, because Joey Logano is a clutch driver. He is a guy that if he needs to win, he can put it together and save his season. And they did that with help from Paul Wolf. But he did that.
Well, and help from Blake Harris too.
Yes, but he had help. He had help
and
from
Sunoco.
Yeah, and Ford. But no, like he's playing the game that NASCAR has set out for him. He does it better than anybody else. The game being this championship format. There is no driver better at getting the clutch victories, getting the clutch wins, getting the clutch championships. Like, there's no driver better at doing it than Joey Logano. Each of his championships came when he was the complete underdog in the Final Four, except for, I guess, this one, because Tyler Reddick was technically the odds underdog out of all 4 of them. But
he was the regular season champion. Like,
exactly. Like, nobody expected Joey Logano to win in 2018. Nobody, because he had to go up against the big 3, still won. Nobody expected him to win in 2022, still won. This year, still won. Like, when he needs to win, he wins. Like, that is, and I think that alone should build his legacy, because it is definitely one of the hardest formats to win a championship. And I think if you ask most drivers that, they'll agree. Like, it's not about consistency anymore. It's about walk-off wins and performing when you absolutely need to. Joey Logano not only wins races, he wins races when he has to. And that's something that I think most drivers wish they could do.
So what's to say he doesn't win 4 more then? Like, he's won 3 out of the last 7 years.
He's 34 years old, isn't he?
So he has 3 more shots because theoretically let's say he gets to 42-ish. That's 3 more shots because it would be every other year, obviously.
4 more shots.
Obviously.
No, dummy.
In the
6. What's half a 6?
Well, next
3.
year he's gonna fall asleep.
You said 42. That's 8 years. Half of 8 is 4.
He's 30. You said 36.
34.
Okay. All right. Then yes, it's yes,
Dummy.
Okay, calm down. So I was
got
going to
Puke
say
Combs
this.
in
The
this show,
thing
not
y'all need to
Michael
know
Massie.
is that Trey is always right about everything.
No, I am not Brian Nolan.
Oh, we
okay?
scared off
Calm
Toby.
I'm back.
So I was going to point something out. Guess the year for Joey Logano as I read his stats. Average start 6.9. Average finish 9.2. 6 poles, 6 wins, 22 top 5s, 22 top 8s.
I know that one.
That was his
2015.
2016.
2015.
Man,
And he finished 6th in the points.
Because
Zero.
Matt Kenseth.
So like that was his best season statistically.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't even make the championship 4.
Well, in that, Puke Combs just put up a great point, Matt Kenseth. So that's what this format does.
Oh,
You make somebody mad, and they can completely wipe out what was a dominant season for you. And
that's true.
there you go. So this format lends itself to insane moments, but sometimes the insane moments ruin and rob the chance to see greatness actually be achieved.
So I made this reference on Sunday, and I'm very proud of it. I made a comparison for Joey Logano, and I think I've told Puke Combs and Dalton Hopkins, Joey Logano is Eli Manning. Eli Manning was a mid to above average starting quarterback in the NFL.
I think you're not giving Eli Manning enough credit, honestly.
As an Eagles fan, I watched enough of Eli Manning to tell you he was a mid, especially towards the end, he was gone. He went mid. But I mean, at best, he was not considered in the top 3 or 4 of quarterbacks in the NFL at any point. And I feel like Joey Logano has always been if you're ranking drivers, I've never felt like there maybe been a moment he'd be 3 or 4, but not in the top 2. There was always someone better than him, whether it was Kyle Busch, Denny, Truex, Harvick. I'm just saying. But Eli Manning was insanely clutch. Insanely clutch. And so is Joey Logano. And also, Joey pulled off maybe the biggest upset of the championship 4 when he took down the big 3. And Eli Manning has the biggest upset in NFL history. I think Joey Logano is this NASCAR's Eli Manning. And I give him a lot of credit. He did what was necessary. I think he's a really good race car driver. I think he has really good racecraft. I think if you give him a chance to win, more times than not, he's going to win. It's just very high or low with him throughout, and his story, being the guy to replace Tony Stewart at Joe Gibbs Racing and drive that iconic Home Depot 20 and fail and get replaced. And then, Roger Penske picks him up and, he is awesome with Penske and now is in one of the few most iconic cars left. It's one of the few cars that's basically consistent every week. The Pennzoil 22. I think he's a good race car driver. I think he's he's a Hall of Famer. He's a 3-time champion, but it's a very unique legacy where you sit down and you say, is he would you rather have Denny's 50 wins or Joey's 3 championships and 34 wins?
36, but yes, I'd go Logano.
36. I can't do math.
He'll probably get to
easily.
50. I think he'll get
Yeah,
to
he's still
50.
got plenty of time left.
That's true.
Yeah,
But
he started young.
Yeah.
He started when he was what, 18?
I
18.
remember seeing the stats when he would win something. It would be he's the youngest. The only other people who have been this young have been Richard Petty, Jeff Gordon, Kyle Busch.
He's the youngest Cup winner in NASCAR history, right? I still think he's that.
Yeah,
But it's those other 3 are elite status.
Yeah.
Petty, Gordon, and Busch. So
He
it's
probably
he has
at the end will go down, and it's kind of like Eli. I think Eli is also, to Toby's point, underrated because like Eli's always going to be compared to Peyton, and Peyton is, probably a Mount Rushmore quarterback. But I think Joey, because there are so many good elite contemporaries around him during his time, whether it was he came up, there was Jimmy and Jeff, Tony. Then now as he's gotten into this era, it's like Harvick, Gordon, or Harvick, Hamlin, Kyle Busch. So I think he'll go down as probably one of the most underrated drivers of all time. I'm sticking with he's the Eli Manning of NASCAR, and I feel pretty good about it.
But here's the thing. If you stuck him, if Gibbs had kept him, or if he'd ended up in a Hendrick car, would he be having more success? I mean, way out, Penske's got the Phoenix thing going on. But everywhere else, I feel like Gibbs and Hendrick are faster. And yeah, Mitski, like you said. Penske doesn't have the speed. So I almost wonder if he'd be like an even more, like have way more dominant wins and all that if he was at one of those other two teams. Because I've always felt like Penske's just like a peg down from those two.
Well, I will say this. Do you know how many championships Penske had before Joey Logano showed up? No, we had one.
No, I had one.
I changed it. I changed it before you said it.
Now they've got, a total of 4 since he's been there, 3 of them with him. So there's something to that. And sure, he probably helps elevate what maybe isn't quite championship winning equipment and turns it into championship winning equipment. But I do think there's something to be said about what if he was in a Hendrick car? Or what if he was?
Penske won almost every major American motorsports thing this year, except the IndyCar regular season title or the IndyCar title this year. I think it's hard to say that Penske doesn't have championship caliber.
No, obviously they do have championship caliber equipment.
It's the best team in motorsports.
You look at how it has been since their Cup program has started. Their IndyCar stuff, everything else always has been better than their Cup stuff. And when you look at Logano's actual stats this year, and how things went this year, other than, this great 10-race run to get to the playoffs and ultimately the championship 4, you could suggest that, okay, yeah, maybe they were a step off because he was 15th in points. And, if it wasn't for that crazy 5 overtime finish at Nashville, he's not in the playoffs. So it's a situation where you could probably question that. I don't think the equipment's as good as Hendrick. I don't think it's as good as some of the others, but they do what they need to do. And again, this format lends itself to finding a way to get through, which, love it or hate it, is a thing. But I would be interested to see what he would do in Gibbs' equipment with his current level of talent, because he was still really trying to fortify that when he was there before. And then Hendrick under his current talent level as well, I think would be interesting.
Yeah, that would be a big what if.
I feel like we'd see him with 10 wins a year, maybe no more championships because this is how this all works out. But you'd probably see him be the dominant guy for a few years.
That is all possible. Let's move on to I would say this was a bittersweet weekend for 2 reasons. Obviously, the last race for Martin Truex Jr., who was on the pole, and then the last race for Stewart-Haas Racing. Dalton, I know you wanted to touch on that for a bit.
Yeah, I think it's not really much of a I don't really know if I can turn this into a question form. It's just mostly about a reflection of Martin Truex Jr., the end of his full-time career, a legendary career, undoubtedly a future Hall of Fame career. Of course, and he ends it with winning the pole, which, I mean, what a great ending for him. And for a moment, for about the first stage, I thought maybe a win too. Like, you never know. And then, of course, Stewart-Haas Racing. And I don't get emotional about things very often when it comes to drivers retiring or anything like that. I didn't get emotional for Dale Jr. even, like, because it's just, look, you got to stop at some point, right? But
Dalton, have you no heart?
Yeah, I don't. I am just bitter.
Military breaks it. Speaking of that, happy Veterans Day, Dalton.
Oh,
yes,
thanks.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, remembrance of, I got broken down emotionally. No, but I appreciate it, guys. And happy Veterans Day to everyone else, all you the service members out there. Those of you who are going through worse things than I am right now. But anyway, the end of Stewart-Haas racing, I thought it was so depressing. And I did get a little bit of emotional watching the haulers leave for the final time, or watching the cars unload for the final time. Because that is not like, it's not like when Germain Racing left. It's not like when give me another team that left recently.
Furniture Row.
Oh, well, okay, that one was a little bit was a little bit better caliber, but my point
Levine Family Racing.
Sure. Yeah, okay, Levine Family Racing. Like, this was a multi-championship caliber team that saw the legendary outbreak of Kevin Harvick. They're the team that made Kevin Harvick's career legendary. They're the team that Tony Stewart shared half of his career with and won his last championship with. Like, that number 14 is going to be iconic. The number 4, it was already iconic, but the number 4 is going to be iconic, like for NASCAR history, because that team had so much success, and it's gone now. Honestly, like, I thought it was on the levels of Hendrick Motorsports. So, I rambled on too much. Like, I just want to reflect, like, maybe if there's going to be a question in this, did Martin Truex Jr., did Stewart-Haas Racing go out, get a proper send-off this weekend?
It's a great question.
Your silence is very reassuring.
I feel like with everything else that's going on, it was very much an afterthought. I don't think anybody even talked about Noah Gragson finishing 12th in their final race. So I think as far as storylines go, it wasn't talked about enough, especially with how much that team brought to the series for the amount of time it was here. It wasn't here very long, retrospectively, when you look at some other teams that have gone through the NASCAR Cup Series for a long time. The 70 wins, a couple championships, and they were in the mix a lot there with Harvick and several of those other guys. So the fact that they're gone, that's huge. And I know they haven't been very good the last couple seasons, but that was a team that when they were on, they were really on. They were a team that was, they were able to put, people like Ryan Newman and revive their careers, and guys like Eric Almirola were able to win in the equipment that hadn't been able to win very much in equipment prior to that. So they couldn't do anything with Danica, but nobody, I don't think, could ever do anything with Danica. But it is what it is, and
future cabinet.
Yeah, that's not really a indictment on them.
Did you just say future cabinet member?
Future cabinet member, Danica.
Yeah, she's going to be a surveyor of the lizard people or something. I don't know. So. But it is what it is. I feel like what they've done, their body of work was very impressive. They were there to kind of cultivate the talent of Rodney Childers, who was an emerging crew chief when he kind of showed up. And now he's a guy that is highly regarded in this industry. And we've seen several other guys. Drew Blickensderfer is one that comes to mind. He actually had a little bit of a resurgence this year as well. It was a guy that many people had kind of written off with how his performance has been over the years. He was good at places like Daytona, but other than that, hadn't really had much success. But they had success this year with him and Noah Gragson. And we'll see if he can keep on going along with that. We'll see. I don't know. I don't think they've announced where he's going yet, but there's a lot of stuff to be said about a lot of the things they did over there at Stewart-Haas, and it is sad to see them go. I'm with Dalton. I'm a little emotional about it.
Yeah, I think Truex we're still going to see around the track. Like, it's kind of weird. Like, we already know he's going to technically race in the next race, the Daytona 500 with Cole Pern, which I think is a really cool way to kind of send him off, if you want to call it that, is just to pair up with, the guy. Like, it would be as if Jimmy and Chad did a race again, which they sort of did with Jimmy doing the IMSA stuff. I know Chad was heavily involved in that, but having Cole Pern be the crew chief for, I guess, a 23-11 entry in the Daytona 500, I think that's going to be really cool with Martin at the helm. I think it's cool that Riley Herbst, who had a really good car at Phoenix, won the race. Like, they go out at least with a checkered flag on the weekend. I know it's on the Xfinity side, but it did feel like a slow, like we saw this coming from 1,000 miles away, especially after, once Kevin Harvick announced his retirement, you kind of saw this coming. Like, it seemed, and once, NASCAR left Eldora and Tony clearly was not with the team anymore, and Tony, to his right, like, I'm not saying Tony did a wrong, like, started in our NHRA team and was going, head deep into, becoming a drag racer, and it's because he's Tony Stewart and one of the biggest badasses that we've ever seen. But it just, you saw it coming. Like, with Gene owning this in a Formula One team, like, they were spread out too thin where the performance lacked, and it was just a kind of a slow thing, like a slow death. And it does suck that because the playoff and the Champ 4 is so emphasized, that the broadcast really couldn't spend 15 minutes talking about Stewart-Haas Racing and how important they were to NASCAR. And it's very bittersweet in the end. I thought it was cool Truex got the pole. Like, that was a really good way to go out. If he wasn't going to win, at least like that sweet, DEI car, which I'm shocked a certain person allowed that paint scheme to happen. Just say that.
It didn't have a perfect. It didn't have the E. Like, it was just 3 stripes. That's all they did. That's how they got around it.
Yeah. I mean, somehow that a certain 8 got released to Dale Jr., so I'm shocked that happened.
He bought it. That's how he got it.
Well, she gave up the charter. Like, she gave up the trademark.
Yeah.
So, but Massie, what do you think?
Yeah, Truex is another one of those where it's like, what if he was with Hendrick or Gibbs his entire career? Like, how much better would he have done? Because he came on so late, really didn't have a steady situation until late in his career. So, it was still a really great career. Once a driver starts getting to the will he, won't he stage of their career of, if they'll keep going or retire, I feel like they're already kind of got one foot out the door, and that's the way it's felt for Truex for the past couple of years. And he was done. He didn't, even Kevin Harvick shed some tears last year when he had like the last team dinner or whatever it was. Truex, no, he's just so checked out. I feel like the spring Richmond race was like the moment where he was just done with everything.
He was in a tree stand yesterday morning. Like, he was ready to go.
So I'm fortunate that he'll stick around, because I always thought that he would just disappear and you would never see him again. Kind of like a Ricky Rudd type, but now he'll be racing some next year, so it's not a full-blown retirement. And the races, like if he runs some Xfinity races for Gibbs, whatever he does, he could dominate. He could still win, and maybe his heart will be more in it if he's not doing it on a weekly basis like Eric Almirola this year, where he's been really great the races he's shown up for. But yeah, a really great career in the Stewart-Haas. Both those situations, they talked about Truex a lot in the pre-race. I don't remember if they talked about Stewart-Haas in the pre-race or not, but both of them ended. It was like 30 minutes after the race it ended. It hit me like, oh, where did those guys finish? Because you're just so caught up in the championship and all that, and it was just an afterthought. And that's the one good thing about if somebody locks the championship up with 5 races to go, is that last race you can focus on all the goodbyes. But Stewart-Haas on the other hand, kind of a furniture row situation where I know they were more successful, but in the sport for a very quick time, but they left an incredible impact, a lot of success. And the biggest loss there, I know we'll still have the Haas factory team, but nobody really knows how good they'll be. But losing Tony Stewart in the garage each week, and I know he hadn't really been showing up the last couple of years that much, but like that's such a big personality that like transcends NASCAR. People outside of NASCAR know who Tony Stewart is, and like losing his presence, I feel like is a huge loss that we haven't even really come to terms with yet. So definitely sad day. You hate to see any race team shut down, but especially a successful one.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, final topic for us. I know we're hitting the hour mark, and Toby's got like 600 more important things to do than hang out with us. So we want to use his.
Hanging out with you guys has been one of the biggest things of my week. What are you talking about?
Damn.
Well, it is the off season. I know you got a beach somewhere to
No,
to
I
relax.
don't have a beach. I'm actually going to be heading to Hendrick Motorsports over the next couple of days because I have to go cover the Hendrick Engine Builder Showdown.
Boom.
One of my favorite events of the year. So there you go.
We'll let you plug that in a second. All right. So I will give full credit to Caleb Barnes, our Long John Silver's enthusiast, our social media guru who helps me out. He kind of proposed this topic idea. So if you or like Steve Phelps and Steve O'Donnell call you, ring your phone, and said, "All right."
It's not a good sign if they're ringing any of our phones.
Very true. But if you could if they asked you, do you wanted to focus on one thing this offseason? And we touched on changing the format. Would it be the format? Would it be the car? Would it be the officiating? Or would it be the schedule? Toby, what would you pick?
Can I tell them to fix all?
I wish we could, but that's not the question.
I can only pick one. Okay, if I'm going to pick one, I'm going to say format because at the end of the day, I can live with the car. It's been good at most tracks other than short tracks. I think
even
at the end
short
of the day,
tracks we've gotten kind of a fix.
Yeah, they're starting to get better. I would say if I had to pick one, though, format, and that's just strictly because I want the champion to be a legitimate champion. I don't want it to be something where at the end of the day we're all going, oh, that's your champion? That guy doesn't deserve to be a champion. Mickey Mouse title, this is stupid. No, I want it to be somebody at the end of the day, well, damn, that guy, he raced his ass off this year. He deserved it. This is definitely him. So that's what I think at the end of the day. It's the most important thing is the valuation of this championship and making it important.
Massie?
I'm going with the officiating because I am tired of a guy having to lick all the Cheeto residue off his fingers before he can hit the caution button. I'm tired of having a weekly press conference from Elton Sawyer or someone at NASCAR explaining why some officiating call was called the way it was. I'm glad they do those when there is a controversial thing, but the point is, we shouldn't be in that position to have a controversial thing in the first place. So they really we need to get back to the way it was in like the David Hoots era, where it's like one guy consistently making calls up there where it's clear as day, like why that's a penalty, why this was a caution, why, and that's all there is. We just need to clear up officiating.
Dalton?
Look, as much as I totally believe Massie has a point, you are never going to clean up officiating. It's just not going to happen. I mean, especially when you have a sport where majority of the calls they make are quote unquote judgment calls. That's tough. That's really tough to quote unquote clean it up because you're never going to please everybody. You can clean it up a little bit. You can improve it a little bit. And I agree with Toby. I think most of us probably agree with this, is that the next gen car, it's good. It's just got some shortcomings on the short tracks and arguably the road courses too. But, I think they're getting better at it. I think the car is definitely getting improved, and it's way better than the old car, I still think. But the format, though, it feels like every single year. I think the last year that we had a champion where nobody complained about who the champion was Kyle Larson in 2021, because Kyle Larson freaking dominated that season. So
and almost missed out too. It took a miraculous pit stop.
You're right. It took a pit stop, a really, really fast miracle pit stop to get him out in front. So yeah, I think there's just some things that got to change, despite the fact that I defended it a little bit earlier. Again, love the playoffs. I just think there needs to be some changes. And if we want to bring it back to the old format, the old chase format, I'm 100% on board.
So I want to say format and agree with you too, but I will say schedule for the very reason that, and I know why they moved Homestead to where they did this year, because apparently they're going to renovate it and make it the championship race or look into doing the championship race. But the fact that Talladega is a round of 8 race scares the crap out of me. Like, you just can't have that sort of race with that much volatility basically being a third of the factor in determining who your championship floor is. So I will say scheduling, because that feels like that could be a big issue come that time. And I'm only being different there. Like, I agree with you two. I think if you have the format, Talladega's like, it fixes the other. I think the format though, fixes the issues we have with the car, the issues we have, like, not maybe the issues, but the issues we have with officiating and the issues we have with the schedule. Because if you make the races matter and it's not one race determining it, sort of fixes the schedule issue. So I have now just contradict myself. So I'll say the format as well.
I was going to say, because if we move Talladega to the round of 8, which is what they're doing, right? I feel like that's actually less egregious than what we're doing now with it in the round of 12, because if you have it in the round of 12, that lends itself to possibly get one of those bottom tier guys to sneak their way into the next round. I think if you get through the round of 16 and the round of 12, if you're in the round of 8 now without a Talladega, you probably deserve to be there anyway. And at that point, I don't think it's going to be a thing that we're like, well, damn, there goes Joey Logano with four top 5 finishes somehow. I think it's going to be one of those situations where it's going to be like, okay, well, I mean, sure, it sucks for whoever got screwed there, but at the end of the day, all 8 of these guys probably deserve to be here.
Fair.
And if you change the format, people don't care as much that Phoenix is the last race.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it's a great place. Like, if it wasn't a one race decider, I think the ideal place to host the championship. But the fact that, like, if you could somehow take Homestead, the track, and give it the vibe of what Phoenix does, I think that's your ideal championship scenario. Just throwing that out there. All right. Final topic, our fun bonus topic. Justin Allgaier makes an insane comeback in the Xfinity Series race. And you could argue the loudest ovation of the weekend was Justin Allgaier coming out of the car and winning the championship. So my question to you guys, was that the most feel-good moment of this format? Like, the win, the one race decider, like Allgaier's win being the most feel-good, like everyone's happy champion.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like just being there was nuts, because he lost the race 8 different ways before he finally won it. He didn't win the race, he won the championship. It was weird because we've seen him go down there several times. He's had this chance so many times, and he's made no mistakes and has not walked away with the championship. You go into this one, and it was countless mistakes, whether, the practice thing, which wasn't his fault, but slipped in oil, crashed his primary car. They had to get a backup car out and do that. So he had to start in the back. He worked his way all the way back towards the front. And it's like, okay, he's going to get this thing. Makes sense now. He's got a really fast car again, gets the tire cut down, racing a little too hard with Riley Herbst there. So it's like, okay, but he saved himself, was able to stay in the top 10. And then on the ensuing restart for stage 2, changes lanes, gets flagged for that, and then comes to serve that penalty and gets flagged for speeding. And it's like, okay, well, he has totally ruined this. It's over. Like, that's it. Like, this championship battle is over. He's done. Somehow, miraculously, gets the caution right when he needs it, is able to get back into the game, and then just crazy shenanigans towards the end. I won't even say shenanigans, but just crazy pinpoint caution periods that kind of really helped him kind of get in the position he needed to be in to pull it off. It was just all miraculous. It all worked out perfectly for him. And the fact he was smart enough to not try to battle Riley Herbst in the last lap for the win, because I don't think that would have turned out very well for him, especially with the contact during the race. And then the contact he used to take the lead there towards the end, I think was a smart call to not try to do that. And ultimately, that's what won the championship.
So would you say that's like the best feel-good story for the championship for this current playoff format?
I'm going to say the ovation we heard there at Phoenix was louder for his championship than it was for Joey Logano's on Sunday. So take that for what you want.
I'd say just to be different. I mean, I do think that the Allgaier one is probably the most feel-good. But I'll throw another good, like, feel-good one out there, and it's fitting because he's retiring, full-time retiring. When Truex won the championship.
That's what I was going to say, Massie.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Just I think that's an obvious one, just because everything he had gone through in his career to that point to finally win the title with a team furniture row that was starting parking just a handful of years before that, and then with everything that Sherry Pollux was going through at the time, may she rest in peace. But and on top of it was Dale Jr.'s last.
That's
race.
what I was going to mention. Like,
yep.
Sorry.
Well, at the time, Kenseth's last race too.
Yeah.
Ultimately, didn't end up being that way, but
yeah, but there's always that like Dale and Truex will always have that connection because like Dale gave Truex start, and there's like I'll never forget that moment of Truex is just sitting on the stage like, "Where's Dale? Where's Dale?" And then they finally kind of have that moment because Dale wanted to give Truex as much, like he wanted to have him let him have that moment. So I think Truex is probably number one. Ironically, both like involve Dale Earnhardt Jr. because you could tell how bad he wanted to win a title. Like Dale wanted Justin to have that moment when he's just standing. Like I don't think he's let go of the flag, but like him just standing there with just watching Allgaier celebrate the moment they have together. So it's definitely in the top two because but just maybe because I was a Dale Earnhardt Jr. fan growing up, and I remember how emotional I was watching that race, just seeing Dale for the last time and knowing how much I knew about Truex and their connection and how like honestly, you couldn't write a better story other than Dale winning the title, which he wasn't going to do because of his concussions. Like having this guy that is one of your closest friends who you gave a start to, who you kind of started his motorsports journey. He breaks through and has his moment. Like the talent you saw in him, like it all comes together. What about you, Dalton?
I had three of them ready to go just in case you guys picked all three of them, and none of you did. So that was, geez, yeah. So I gotta pick the best out of all three of them, and it's really tough.
Just name them.
What are the three?
So look, we're talking about none of them were really championships that were deserving per se. But they're feel good wins. Yeah, great start, right? But this is the current playoff format, so of course they're not. But they're championships that people that were very popular, and that is Kyle Busch in 2015. Considering what he had to go through, I know he missed the first half of the season, but you got to remember he had to grind to get back into the top 35 in points. And not only did he do that, but he won, I think it was like 4 races before the end of the regular season. Chase Elliott had to do that. Was it last year? Yeah, last year. And he didn't. So what does that mean about Kyle Busch? He came back and started winning races right off the bat. And then, Jimmy Johnson in 2016, which is a huge deal because it made him into a 7-time champion. A lot of people were thinking that wasn't going to happen because of how the playoff format is, and it didn't really play to his skill level. And then there was, which was a really weird one, and I think a lot of people would say that this is probably the most undeserving one so far. And I'm not talking about Matt Crafton. I'm talking about Daniel Hemrick. And what was that, 2021? Oh my goodness. Talk about a clutch win. I don't think anybody could. That is his only win. His only win in the top. It was his only win, and it probably still will always be in the top 3. And it won him a championship. Like that is, I don't know if you could say it as a feel good moment, but that is one hell of a playoff format moment for me.
We'll see. I think Hemrick actually could win some races next year if the ride ends up with what I've been hearing. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, that's a tease right there. All right.
We'll see.
That will do it for this episode of Happy Hour. We ran a little bit long, but we were having fun.
That's to be expected. I missed last time, so I had to come in.
You had to make up for it.
I'm not going to share the screen. Actually, I will share the screen. Congratulations are in order for. Oh, will it let me share the screen? It did let me share the screen. Did it? No, it didn't. All right. This is a different computer. Oh, yes, it did.
Oh, there it is.
Michael Massie, because of Joey Logano, has won the championship 4864 to my 4779. The good news is Massie and I left Tom and Brian in the dust. Brian's at 430.04, Tom at 44.24. Massie, do you have anything to say? And yeah, that's it. You got lucky.
I didn't get lucky. I bet on even year Joey, and I will keep doing that from here on out. Next year, Joey Logano will not be anywhere near my team, but 2 years from now, he'll be back on it. And then, of course, last year's driver of the year, William Byron. A good year for me as well. So, yeah. And it's funny, that whole Martinsville controversy. Either way, I got a guy in with Byron and Bell. So, it was, yeah, good season. Thank you, guys. Thank you, drivers, for winning this for me.
Tyler Reddick couldn't get clutch for me. And Zane Smith, of course, caused the wreck that caused you. But we'll reground. All right, speaking of awards, we're going to give out some awards, some fun. We did this last year. Maybe Dalton this time, since Dalton actually gets to be a part. Well, he was a part of it. He got to send a video, but he'll be in person. We're going to maybe dress up again. I know Massie and I did last year, so we'll see. The Front Stretch Award Show next week, right here during happy hour. We'll have Davey Siegel with us, and we'll celebrate the NASCAR year, giving out some awards, the real awards, what NASCAR really wanted. What the drivers really want are these awards. So they've been, blowing us up saying, hey, is it my year to win this? Well, you'll find out. Toby, before we get on out of here, anything you want to plug for our listeners?
Man, I'm just anxiously awaiting the award show now. I've got to go check that out. So that's going to be good. No, the Hendrick Engine Builder Showdown I mentioned earlier, happening this week. It starts tomorrow. That will not be on Racing America as far as the stream for it, but there will be a stream on Thursday of the finale. I'm getting my days mixed up. See, I traveled to Phoenix. Things are all jacked up. See, when you said that was a perfect site for a finale, I have to argue because all the way over there that is not a perfect site for the finale, but that's okay.
I said they could have a baby, and then maybe you take the atmosphere of Phoenix and put it at Homestead, and there we go.
If you could do that, that would be great, but you can't. So anyway, Hendrick Engine Builder Showdown. Check it out, RacingAmerica.tv. If you're a subscriber, it will be included free for subscribers. The show on Thursday, which will be the finale. It's really cool. They've got Hendrick Motorsports mechanics that team up with Hendrick Auto Group mechanics in a showdown against each other to kind of see who can build an engine the fastest. It's pretty awesome. It's good stuff.
Dalton wrote a beautiful piece of Thinking Out Loud reacting to the championship race. If you haven't read that, check it out at frontstretch.com. Massie, are you writing fire on Fridays this week?
Nope, we done for the year. The fire has been put out for the 2024 season and back next year. But I did have an interview with Dawson Sutton that I believe will be on Bringing the Heat this week.
I guess it will be. No one told me that, so I guess it will be. Well, that comes out in your podcast feed. So this is Wednesday in the podcast feed. So that'll come out Thursday in the podcast feed. So tune into that. Signing off for now. For Toby, for Puke Combs, for Dalton Hopkins, I'm Trey Lyle. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Happy Hour.